Continuing on here, Sports and the D, John out here with you. It is January 1st, 2018. Happy New Year, everybody. And hopefully you had a great celebration and now you end the night asleep and dealing with the recovery process. Facebook.com/TBUGunslinger, Twitter @JohnRyanOtt. Hopefully all of you guys are getting over that sickness and the cold and everything else that's been going on. This part of the segment here is just some of my closing thoughts for 2017 and some of these New Year's resolutions and things like that that you guys try to follow. I want to tell you a quick story here. There's going to be no show prep, nothing sports related, maybe some video game stuff related, but I want to give you a quick story here. So when I started playing on the Xbox 360, all right, that was a time when you had a lot of online multiplayer and everything else start to boom. You know, you had the subscriptions between the 360 and PS3 with different price ranges and things like that. But basically around that time, you had online multiplayer gaming that was coming into a head. So being an avid sports gamer, I wanted to give the NHL series from EA a chance. And when I ended up doing that, I ended up meeting with someone that I was friends with for a long time, starting playing NHL 10, and growing from that time, playing with him, we also met with a group of Canadian players that we had a full 5 or 6 at times, where I was normally playing defense, left defense, right defense, or rotating, but always in the defense. The guy I played with was on the wing, and the rest of those guys played the forwards. So, quite frankly, long story short, playing with that guy that I played with from 10, we had a new group. There was some falling out between guys that decided who likes who and who does what and whose position is what, you know, stuff like that. Things like this always seem to happen. So around NHL 12, that's when I decided to stick with the friend that I had first met from 10 and continue on. And throughout that time playing NHL 12 now, we have gone to have some top 50 finishes playing with him. Bringing in another friend at the time that we ended up playing basketball with. Didn't know a damn thing about hockey. Long story short, we bring him in there, and he ends up learning a few things in the game, and it takes us from top 50 to having 3 top 3 finishes and a top 1. The way that we got the 3 top 3 finishes, we did not buy NHL 13. We continued from 12, and in that year where we were supposed to be playing 13, granted, yes, there's not as many people playing, but 3 top 3 finishes and a top 1 finish. And let me tell you honestly, that you had to probably play about 115 games per month and have over a 90% win percentage. Suffice it to say, we were very successful, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. Now, this is where my story comes in as far as resolutions and all of that. We go along, 14, and then you get into the new console. You know, 15 didn't have Hockey League, so you played from 16. So we played 12 for 2 years. It was great. We played 14. Yeah, it was all right. And then we started again with 16. It was kind of a revival because we hadn't played hockey in over a year. Now, the story begins to change when the initial friend of mine decides to have a change in personality. And again, I'm not trying to throw anything personal this way in this story, but things began to be not as fun. Not because as much as he wasn't as good as he was, because I wouldn't honestly mind that. Stuff changes. It's hard to adapt at certain times. The games are always different. Hell, I wasn't having as much success, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, personalities had changed, and this person that I begun to play with, that I ended up enjoying playing with a lot, had become one hell of an asshole. And it was one of those initial reasons why the club that we had when we started with 10 with these Canadian players ended up being in the same thing. And you know, about 6-7 years later, now the situation rears its ugly head, and within this time period, from playing 16 to now the concurrent 18, I have to decide whether I'm 1 foot in the door, whether I keep this going, or I'm 1 foot out. You know, a transition period is not something that you want to be stuck in, especially to make that conclusion with a lot of these sports teams. You don't want to be stuck in the middle. You want to be down, or you want to be all the way up. And I was stuck in the middle of purgatory, if you will, in myself, because I did not make that decision. Well, starting on the 31st, just before we hit the new year, I decided I didn't want to put up with the crap anymore, and I left. I abandoned the relationship that, you know, I was more of a gaming relationship. He wasn't really exactly a very, very, very good friend of mine, but a decent friend of mine. I would say that for sure. Someone I would enjoy talking to from time to time. But as the personality and things like that had changed, I just had to ultimately make a decision that this wasn't working out anymore for a variety of reasons, more personality-wise and profanity-laced or put down, stuff like that, that I didn't want to deal with. That's kid shit. You know, I don't want to deal with that stuff anymore. So I left. And one of my New Year's resolutions, which, and all people always have New Year's resolutions that they might keep for a week. I want to go work out. I want to lose weight. I want to do things like this. You know, I don't really have a lot of those. I don't set a lot of those. But for the first time in my life, when I set a resolution, yes, it was probably one of those ones that were small, but I decided to alleviate unneeded stress in my life. And that was part of them. Let me tell you that. I know if you're coming home playing video games, something like that, oh, it shouldn't be stressful. You're just coming home from work and things like that. And yeah, it shouldn't be stressful. It's not one of those things when you come on, you want to be able to unwind. You don't want to go on and have to deal with more troubles and troubles on top of it. It's just not worth it at that time. So I decided to alleviate that situation. And it was a change that I think was relatively needed. And now I'm moving on with the other player that we ended up grooming into, because him and I have become pretty good friends actually, and probably better friends than the one I was with initially. But I mean, be that as it may, we simply don't bitch each other out. Yeah, there's times where we both make mistakes and we'll point them out to help each other get better, but it's not one of those things that you hinder on and on and on and on and make jokes about over and over and over again. So here's where I come into everything else. So you decide to make a change. Sometimes it doesn't feel like the best thing to do. It's hard to throw away relationships and things like that that you've had for a long time. But if it's eating away at you and it's not keeping you at the same level of happiness and things like that, ultimately you have to decide in order what's best for yourself. That's ultimately who you should be spending time thinking about. Unless you're talking about your significant other or your kids and things like that, because you're the one that's going to have to spend the most time with you. So it's best in order to keep yourself happy. Now, what I'm saying is there's times where you need to make decisions that can be tough, and you think about some of these intended consequences or things like that, but a lot of people tell you you have to be able to move forward, and I think that's something that I was able to do, and I feel a lot better about that. In synopsis, within the last summer till now, getting into 2018, is I don't like to talk about any of that stuff work-related and things like that as I'd had dealt with in the past because it's simply not appropriate. But, I mean, as you guys know, I think that this is okay to say that I've been out of a job for over 5.5 months because of this situation that had gone throughout the workplace as far as the journalism field and working at the Oakland Press and things like that. You know, decisions had to be made, and a lot of us ultimately ended up losing jobs and having to go on to something else. So now I finally have an opportunity to work somewhere else. After 5.5 months, I had a first day at a new job about a week ago, and now I'm bringing in fresh part-time hours tomorrow, doing something that I never thought I would be doing, and getting a chance to get a complete fresh start. So with the fresh start that I made, making some changes online, hopefully this fresh start leads to something else that's better as far as job market field and everything else is concerned. 30 years old in March, I'll be 31. So let's face it, guys, my market value and value with girls and everything else is dropping day by day by day, hour by the hour. You know, time is of the essence, and I need to strike while the iron's hot. And hopefully, you know, I'll just go into this new job opportunity having to learn some things on the fly and just do the best I can. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least that this is a paying job. And unlike some of that stuff that I had brought in with those basketball articles and things like that I was experimenting in the summer, and yes, I would love to get back to, I need to figure out what's going on exactly with this new job I'll be starting as far as the hours that I can dictate into that, because a lot of that stuff within the basketball time that you've seen on the Facebook and everything else like that I put on Twitter, LinkedIn, if I'm covering those games, I'm starting an 11:30 game like that. The game is over, and then I start doing the play-by-play around 2 in the morning when the live update and everything else is up for that. And then by the game story and everything else gets built in, it's about 5:30 in the morning. So if I'm going to be working around 9 a.m., 10 a.m., I can't be doing stuff like that anymore because I won't be having any sleep as far as preparing for the job that's going to be paying me to perform. So that stuff is probably going to continue to make a back burner as far as the basketball content, but as these radio shows and everything else, I'm going to keep going at those from time to time and then giving you some updates as far as I normally would as far as video games, Madden, and things like that, whatever I have going on. So I won't be going away anytime soon, but there's been a lot of changes as far as now starting a new job, having to leave some of that stuff that I had before as far as the online community for hockey, and as good as everything else it's been to me, had to make some changes within my group because it just wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. I couldn't stomach having one foot in the door, one foot out the door, and dealing with the stress day to day. So Facebook.com/TrubuneGunslinger, Twitter @JohnRyanOtt. What are some of your New Year's resolutions, and what are some of the difficult decisions that you've had to make? This is John Ott signing off for New Year, January 1st, 2018. I hope you guys have a good one. I hope you guys have a great year. And again, look out for yourselves and continue to try to improve in any way you can, because I know as we get older, it's never too old to make some small improvements from time to time to feel better about yourself. That's always a good place to start. Talk to you guys soon. Peace out.